Okay, go ahead and pull up 1.2 notes. All right, 1.2 notes. You guys have a quiz on Wednesday, September 15th, over section 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. We're going to do all of 1.2 today, and we're going to do all of 1.3 tomorrow. Then we're going to spend Monday and Tuesday practicing everything. I'm not going to do like a formal quiz review. I'm going to tell you guys exactly what's going to be on your quiz. What's question number 1? What did I tell you question number 1 was yesterday? First question on every quiz version is what's the distance and what? Midpoint. All right. Every single version of the quiz, that's the first question. Then you're going to have a couple questions that talk about circles and X and Y intercepts, which we're going to talk about today. And then we're going to talk about writing equations of lines, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. So we're going to spend next Monday, Tuesday just practicing those concepts because you guys are going to have a quiz and it's going to be 4 or 5 questions and you just have to make sure you can get through it. Now, when you guys talk about lines, yes, sir. Okay, so if you guys are asked to sketch a line or to graph a line, all right, the easiest thing for us to do and the most grown-up way for us to do this is to take this equation and put it in what? How do we graph a line? It has to be in slope-intercept form, right? That's our y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b, where m is our slope, right? And b is our y-intercept, where the graph crosses the y-axis. So if I were to get this equation into y equals mx plus b, I'd move 2x over, so I'd have negative y equals negative 2x plus 3. Divide everything by negative 1, right? So our y is positive. So I have y equals 2x minus 3, where my slope is 2, my y-intercept is negative 3, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow. What they're asking you to do here, and what you'll have a couple questions on your homework tonight, is to make a table of values. All they want you to do when you make a table of values is to plug numbers in. So they're going to give you x values. You plug it in for x. So here we would say like 2 times negative 1 minus 3. Well, that's 2 times negative 1. Negative 2. Minus 3 is? Negative 5. So your point would be negative 1, negative 5. And then here we'd plug in 0. What's 2 times 0? 0. Minus 3? So 0, comma, negative 3. Then we plug in 1, all right? 2 times 1 minus 3. What's 2 times 1? Minus 3, negative 1. So plug in 1, get out negative 1. Hold on one second. So to make a table of values, they're going to give you x values. You plug it in, find your y value. Everybody okay with that? All right. You guys aren't going to do that much more in your math career. You're going to be asked to graph equations by putting it into slope-intercept form and then graphing that way, not just making a table of values. But we're just reminding ourselves of that. All right, when we talk about intercepts, guys, we have x intercepts and we have y intercepts, okay? Graphically, when I talk about intercepts on a graph, this is the x-axis, the horizontal one, right? And this is the y-axis. If I talk about an x-intercept on a graph, the x-intercept is where the graph crosses what? The x-axis. It's where the graph crosses the x-axis. All right? A y-intercept is where the graph crosses the what? The y-axis. So if you're given a picture, if you're given a graph, and I say to you guys, okay, like this. All right, so this is, say, negative 3. This is 1. This is 1. And this is 5, just for whatever. If I said to you guys, okay, how many intercepts are there total? 4. How many x-intercepts are there? 3. What are they? Negative 3, 1, and 5. What's the y-intercept? Positive 1, right? We all love to just look at a graph and tell what all the intercepts are. We're going to obtain the x and y intercepts algebraically by plugging in numbers. If you try to find the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y. A lot of times it makes you have to factor. If you're trying to find the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x. Make sure you write this down, please. On your quiz, when you are finding x and y intercepts, we are going to write our intercepts as ordered pairs. Meaning 0, comma, a number, or a number, comma, 0. Don't just tell me the x-intercept is 1. It's x equals 1 or 1, comma, 0. But we're going to write them as ordered pairs because we're talking about two different axes, so we need to make sure we know which one we're looking at. All right, again, what we just talked about, just going over it again, x-intercepts are where the graph crosses the x-axis. Y-intercepts are where it crosses the y-axis. If you're trying to find x, you set y equal to 0 and solve. If you're trying to find y, you set x equal to 0 and solve. All right, it's right there, right in front of you guys. So now we're just going to practice some. We're going to find the x and y intercepts. Don't worry about graphing right now. I just want to find x and y intercepts. So let's use this first example right here. Y equals x squared minus 2. All right, so watch, guys. This is all I need to see from you. I don't need to see huge writing and all this. I just need to see that you guys understand. So if I'm going to find the y-intercept, I plug in 0 for what? So look, I'm plugging in 0 for x. I'm putting a 0 in for my ordered pair. And now I'm just going to solve here. I'm going to say y equals 0 squared minus 2. Well, what's 0 squared? So 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So you guys would answer this question. The y-intercept is at 0, negative 2. You guys understand that? Now, if I'm going to find the x-intercept, well, that means I'm plugging in 0 for what letter? For the y. So I'm going to do that over here. So I'm going to put 0 here and say x squared minus 2. All right, solve for x, guys. What would you do?
You would put 2 on the other side.
Okay, move 2 to the other side. So this becomes x squared equals 2. Then what?
Then you would square.
Take the square root. Perfect. When I put the square root on top of a number, what goes in front of it? Mm-hmm. What's my answer here?
X equals square root 2.
Kinda.
Is it 2 go another 2?
It is a plus or minus. Good, Chloe, good. So you would put here plus or minus root 2. Or, here, let me write it a little better. If you guys wanted to, you could write it separately, you know, like 2 different points if you wanted to. But I'm totally okay with you saying plus or minus square root of 2, comma, 0. I'm not asking you to graph that. But here's a little hint. What's the biggest exponent you see? Squared. That means that's going to tell you how many x-intercepts there are. So if you look at this and you say, well, it's supposed to be 2, but I only got 1. Maybe then remember, ooh, wait, did I take the square root? I got to put a plus or minus on top. But that's all I need to see for work. I don't need to see massive amounts. A lot of times you guys are going to get this, and when we get to quadratics, you'll see, which is what we're going to move to next. But when you factor, you're going to just factor like we've been doing, and then set your parenthesis equal to 0, and that gives you your intercepts. So let's look at, we just did kind of 49. Let's do, we can do 51. All right, 51. It says y minus 2xy, right? Plus 2x equals 1. Did I write that correctly? Okay, so you guys are like, oh my gosh, this problem is so long. It's really not. Take your time. What do you want to find first, the x-intercept or the y-intercept? Okay, if you're going to find x, that means you plug in 0 for what? So then do that, right? If you need to write an x right here and a y here to remind yourself, that's fine. So I'm going to substitute in a 0 for everywhere I see a y, and I'm going to solve. So I have 0 minus 2x times 0 plus 2x equals 1. All right, well, what's 2x times 0? So that cancels out. So I have 0 minus 0 plus 2x. So I have 2x equals 1. Now what do I do to both sides? Divide both sides by 2. So x equals what? 1/2. So my intercept is at 1/2, comma, 0. Now how am I going to find the y-intercept? do the same thing, but I'm going to plug in 0 for x. So again, write your problem. I have y minus 2 times 0 times y plus 2 times 0 equals 1. Well, what's 2 times 0 times y? 0. And then what's 2 times 0?
0.
So what does y equal, guys?
1.
Y equals 1. So whatever this graph is, whatever it looks like when we graph it, it crosses the x-axis at x equals 1/2, and it crosses the y-axis at y equals 1. Right? Make sense? All right. What about, yes, ma'am?
So
Let's look at 55, all right? 55. Whoa. 55 is crazy looking. 4x squared plus 25y squared equals 100. All right, we're finding x and y intercepts. So I'm going to plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. See what happens. So over here, I'm going to plug in 0 for what value is that? What value did I just plug in 0 for? The x, okay? So 4 times 0 squared plus 25y squared equals 100. Yes, sir?
Let's say that 25 and 20, could you find the greatest common difference?
Yep. Very good. Yep, you definitely could. All right, what's 0 squared times 4? Okay, so I'm left with 25y squared equals 100. Now what?
divide by 25.
Divide both sides by 25. So y squared equals 4. Don't get tricked here. Now what?
Square root.
Take the square root. Guys, did I physically put the square root on top of that number? Did I draw the square root on top of 4? So what goes in front of my answer? Plus or minus. Good. What's the square root of 4? 2. So you have an intercept at 0, positive 2, and at 0, negative 2. If you only tell me one of them, then you only got half of the answer. So now we're going to do the exact same thing, but instead of plugging in 0 for x, we're going to plug in 0 for what?
Y.
Okay, so I have 4x squared plus 25 times 0 squared equals 100. What's 0 squared times 25? So I have 4x squared equals 100. Now what? Perfect. Divide by 4. So x squared equals 25. What does just plain old x equal? Woohoo! Good job. Plus or minus 5. So how many intercepts do I have here?
4.
Total, how many do I have? 4. How did you know at the beginning of this problem that you were going to have 4 intercepts?
Because x is squared and y squared.
Yep.
You just add
X is squared, so that means there's 2 there, and y is squared, which means there's 2 there. So if you had something like this. All right, let's look at this. Let's find the x and y intercepts here. Well, I plug in 0 for x to find y, and then I plug in 0 for y to find x, correct? Okay, so let's do y first. If I plug in here, I have 2 times 0 squared plus 5 times 0 minus 3. Well, what's 0 squared?
0.
Times 2.
0.
Okay. And then 5 times 0.
0.
So where does this function cross the y-axis? At negative 3. So my y-intercept is 0, comma, negative 3. Now, this is not a trick question, guys. We've been doing this the last few days. If I am finding the intercepts for x, I'm finding the solutions, I'm finding the roots, whatever. We plug in 0 for y. Well, f of x is a fancy way of saying what?
Y.
So I have 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 equals 0. This problem looks oddly familiar. How do I solve this? I have to factor it. First thing we ask ourselves is there a GCF? Is there a GCF between 2, 5, and 3? Okay, so A times C. Negative 6. What are the factors of negative 6 that multiply to give me negative 6 but add to give me 5? So x plus 6 and x minus 1. All right. Is my a term 1? No. So what do I do with this a term?
Put it out front.
Good. Divide both sides. So I'm left with x plus 3. Agreed? And 2x minus 1 equals 0. Well, I still don't have my answer. What do I do with each parenthesis? You set it equal to 0. Perfect. X plus 3 equals 0. And 2x minus 1 equals 0. So over here I'm minus 3, so I have x equals negative 3. And over here I'm going to add 1. 2x equals 1, divide by 2, so x equals 1/2. So how many intercepts do I have here for x? 2. Is it the same number, just plus or minus? No. So you would just write it out as, okay, I have one at negative 3, comma 0, and 1/2, comma 0. Most of the time, guys, from now on, when we're talking about intercepts, x and y, after today, it's going to be where you're factoring, because we're going to get into quadratics and stuff like that. So just a matter of understanding, factoring is not going anywhere. It's super important that we get this in our brain. All right, we're going to talk about circles. You're going to have 2 questions on your quiz about circles. One's going to be super duper easy, to where you can just look at it and tell me the answer. And the other one, you have to do a little bit of work. But the standard form for an equation of a circle is right here. Right here. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals radius squared. Notice h and k, that's the center of your circle. R is your radius. So in order to write the equation of a circle, you need 2 really important pieces of information. What are those 2 pieces of information? You need a center and you need a radius. If you have those 2 things, you can write the equation of the circle. If you have those 2 things in an equation, you can tell me them. One of the things on your quiz is going to be given an equation of a circle, tell me the center and the radius. Literally, it'll be like this. X minus 3 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 16. And if I said to you guys, what's the center of this circle?
Negative 3, negative 5.
Is it negative 3, negative 5?
I know it's 3.
Why is it 3, 5, Kat?
Because you're just subtracting that.
Look, do you see how in the formula there's a minus here? So when you take those numbers out, it's going to be the opposite. So your center would be at 3, 5. And what's your radius?
16. Oh, 4.
Why did you get 4?
Because you...
Because look, in the formula it's so it's the square root of 16. How come my answer isn't plus or minus 4 though? Because you took the square root.
Isn't it perfect square?
It is a perfect square.
Because...
What does radius measure?
half of the circle.
Half of what of the circle?
Half of the diameter.
Half of the length. Would you guys ever go to Lowe's and be like, I need negative 8 feet of something? No, right? We don't measure distance in negatives. So that's why it's not a negative number. So let's see. Let's see, smarties. What if I have x? What's my center? My center is, Kat says negative 13, 0. Do we agree with her? Where did we get 0?
Why is it... Wouldn't it be 1?
Is anything being added to or subtracted from y?
No.
So you're right, it is 0. Good. Now radius. What's my radius, guys? The square root of 40. Is Mrs. Meadows happy with you leaving your answer as the square root of 40? No, we can break this down into 4 and 10, right? So what's my radius? 2 square roots of 10. Good. All right. That's another question right there on your quiz. One of the questions is going to look just like this and say, all right, give me the equation of the circle. Or it's going to say, all right, what's the center? What's the radius? Yes, ma'am.
How is it negative 3 plus 3?
It's the opposite. Remember, because this is a negative inside. So when you take it out, it's the opposite. Now, that's a good question. Sometimes it's hard to see. Look, if I give you the center, if I say the center of your circle is -5 and 1, right? Say it's -5, 1, and your radius is 3. All right, we're going to write the equation. So here, this is my equation of the circle. The formula is x minus the h value. Look what happens when I plug in a -5 for my h value. It becomes what? Turns positive. Good. Then I have plus y. Well, that's a positive 1, right? Isn't my center a positive 1?
Yeah.
But when I put it in the formula, it's the minus.
Okay.
And then what would my radius be? 3 squared, right?
I think yeah.
So this equation, given this information, the equation would be x plus 5 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 9. Good, very good. It's a good question. So you see why the signs change. That's good. Here's just some quick little examples here. Tell me the center and the radius for 67. 0, 0. Can't fool you guys. And what's my radius?
3.
Awesome. What's my center for 69?
3 and 0.
3, 0. Remember, it's the opposite of what you see. And then what's my radius?
4.
Guys, so proud. What's my center for 71? -3, 4, and my radius is 5. There is a question on your quiz that literally is this. So I told you guys there was 5 questions on your quiz, right? We already know what 3 of them are. Yeah, right? So we're gonna spend next week practicing. All right, if I gave you this, let's look at 73. Remember, this is my H, this is my K, and this is my R. They want me to write the equation of this circle. Well, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Given this information in 73, what does the equation of the circle look like? Tell me.
X plus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 25.
Perfect. Good job. Does anybody have any questions about how to write the equation of the circle like that? Okay, you guys did great. Awesome. One more thing. Another thing that I'm going to show you is another question that's going to be on your quiz. So after I'm done talking in 5 minutes, 4 of the 5 questions on your quiz have already been covered. You're going to have a question on your quiz on Wednesday, and it's going to say, here's 2 points. Tell me the distance to the midpoint. Then you're going to have a question on your quiz that says, tell me the X and Y intercepts. Then you're going to have a question on your quiz that says, here's the equation of a circle. Tell me what the center and the radius is. All right? Then you're going to have a question like this. A. Let's do A real quick. We can do this in 2 seconds. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So tell me the equation. Given this information in letter A, what's the equation of this circle? X minus 2 squared
Plus
y plus 5 squared equals
9.
perfect. All right? It's not too bad, right? All right, then we're going to look at B. You guys will be like, oh, tell me everything's easy, and then you go and do this. Guys, this is still easy. I don't know what your geometry teachers have taught you, but for me, especially geometry, I don't see things well. So if there's not a picture, I try and draw one. So this tells me right here, find the equation of a circle. All right, I know what the equation of a circle looks like. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. right? And you have to have a radius. Well, this says find the equation of a circle. So I'm going to draw a circle. And it says has points P and Q are endpoints of the diameter. That's some really interesting information. Think about what a diameter does. It goes from one side of the circle to the what? To the other side. Okay, so they gave me a point over here. It doesn't matter where you put them. They told me 1/8, and they told me this one is 5, -6. Okay, so let's think about this. I want to write the equation of a circle. Minus k squared equals r squared. So I need the center, which is h and k, and I need the radius. We can find all of that stuff just with these points. Think about where the center is of a circle. It's where? In the middle. Do I have a formula, Miss Cat, that tells me how to figure out the middle of a line? The midpoint. Good job, guys. So we're going to find the midpoint of points 1/8 and 5, -6. Very good. So here's my x, here's my y. What's the midpoint formula again?
x1 plus x2.
Yep, the x's, add them together,
And then
divide by 2, and then
y1 plus y2.
the y's, add them together, divide by 2. Awesome, Hannah. So 1 plus 5. 1 plus 5 divided by 2. And then 8 plus -6 divided by 2. What's 1 plus 5? 6. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then 8 plus -6 is 2. And 2 divided by 2 is? So the center of my circle, guys, is what? 3, 1. Look, we can already start the equation of our circle. It's x minus, well, this is the h part, so 3 squared plus y minus what? Perfect. Awesome. Now, okay, we found the center. The center is here at 3, 1. So what else do I need in order to finish writing the equation of my circle? I need the radius. Well, look at your picture. Can I figure out the radius of this circle? What is the radius in comparison to the diameter? Half of it. So would you guys agree with me that from here to here is my radius? Could I do it from the center to the other point? Yes. Why did I pick 1/8? Because it's easier. They're both positive. I'm always going to try and find the easiest way to do something, right? You want to work smarter, not harder. So you could find the distance from the center to 5, -6. That's fine. I'm just going to do from 1/8 to 3, 1 because they're all positive numbers. So what formula do I have that I learned yesterday that tells me how far something is? The distance. We take our x's, subtract them, divide by 2. Then we take our y's, subtract them. Not divided by 2, squared. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. So what are the 2 points that we're going to use? 1/8 and the midpoint, which is 3, 1. So let's find our distance, guys. 1 and 3. So I have 1 minus 3 squared plus 8 minus 1 squared. Agreed? Okay, so I have -2 squared plus 7 squared. Okay. 4 plus 49. So my radius equals, what's 49 plus 4? 49 and 4?
53.
The square root of 53. It is prime. But think about, in your equation of a circle, what goes here at the end? Radius squared. So if I square the square root of 53, it's just 53. Perfect. Do we see why we did distance and midpoint yesterday? All right, so of your quiz, which is next Wednesday, 4 of the 5 questions you guys could do right now. Some of you could even do the 5th one, and I haven't even gone over it yet. But this is all very doable.